Welcome. Welcome everyone out there in listening land. I'm Kerry Cadambi and you're listening to A Spirited Exchange on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour for an engaging conversation inspiring you to awaken to the power of your mind and how to use it to heal and to manifest so that you can live into your true and highest potential. Each second and fourth Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific on A Spirited Exchange, we'll bring you inspiring guests, engaging in stimulating and mind-opening discussions, helping you to awaken, heal, and reveal your highest purpose. Today, I'm excited to have Mytrae Meliana here to share her perspective on what is the mind. We'll explore how our state of mind can affect our health, our relationships, and success in life. And we'll talk about how to recognize where mind may limit us and how to access the power of our mind to overcome challenges, empowering us to live our best lives. Mytrae is also an award-winning author, a holistic psychotherapist, and a spiritual teacher. Let's welcome Mytrae Meliana to A Spirited Exchange. Hello, Mytrae.
Hi, Kerry. It's great to be here with you again.
I love working with you. This is so fun, and I'm looking forward to this discussion today because I think it's going to be eye-opening for some people and helpful to everyone, whether it's something they've known about before or if they're new to this whole idea. So let's start by talking about defining what it is that we mean by mind so that everybody's kind of on the same page. And what exactly is the mind and where is the mind in respect to our body? So Mytrae is a psychotherapist. Can you share with us your understanding of what the mind is?
That's such a great and fundamental question, Kerry. The mind is, I think of the mind as our intelligence. And we have different intelligences and different aspects. It's almost like if our intelligence were a diamond, we have different facets of intelligence. And sometimes one facet may not know what the other facet knows. And part of our journey as evolution is how do we integrate and come to know all our intelligence. So we have different kinds of mind. There's the conscious mind, which is what we're most aware of in our waking state. You know, it's our thoughts, our feelings, our sensations as we move about our life and live our life. And if I were to give you a picture of an iceberg, a conscious mind is the top visible part of the iceberg. And we also have this other part of the mind called the subconscious mind. And that's the piece of the iceberg that's below the water. And if you see in a picture of the iceberg, you know the part that's below is huge compared to the little bit that's floating on top. Yeah. So the subconscious mind is actually 95%, and our conscious mind is 5%. So that just lets us know how much more there is to us and that we get to discover and become.
Yes. And what comes to my mind is who's driving the car?
Right.
95% of what's running things is the subconscious. And would it be fair to say that we're not always aware of what's in the subconscious?
Absolutely. And that's why it's subconscious. It's not known to us, but we do access it in our dreams. We do access it in those moments when we sort of daydream or drift out of thinking mind and focused mind, you know, when we just kind of let our minds wander, or when we get those flashes of intuition or gut feeling. The subconscious mind actually lives in our bodies. And the body is a living embodiment of your subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
a living embodiment. So what resides in that subconscious? Is it all good, all bad, a combination?
It's a combination. It's really it's a combination on many levels. One level is our beliefs. What we believe lives in our bodies. All our past experiences, good and bad, live in our body. So we have access to grief, we have access to joy, we have access to innocence, we have access to pain, we have access to the whole gamut. And you can think of our body as a painting. And if we were to have an illness, then usually some organ or some part of our body will get sick, or we might have a limiting belief about something and it might show up as an illness. So the thing about the subconscious mind is that it's intimately connected with our body.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people have heard about limiting beliefs, but maybe if you can go into a little bit of detail is like, what are limiting beliefs? Where do they come from? And how do they affect us?
Yeah. So a limiting belief is any belief. We all believe certain things. The important thing about our conscious mind believes certain things. For instance, we might believe some aspect about our reality. For instance, something very basic is there is gravity and there is day and night, and something that we can all understand. A subconscious belief is hidden information that we're unaware of. But the reason the subconscious is so important is that it is the bottom half of the iceberg, and it is actually in the driver's seat. It is running our lives. It is running everything about us. And it's really important because if we want love, or if we want good health, or if we want success or abundance or whatever it is wanting, all of that gets created by our limiting beliefs. So what we believe actually creates our reality. So they are our manifesting tools. And in some cases, sometimes they're wonderful, they're positive. They're, I'm a creator, I'm an artist, I'm successful, I can find love, I am beautiful. These are all positive beliefs. And then there are negative beliefs which hold us back or keep us stuck or cycling around, trying the same thing, but we feel like we're never getting to where we want to go. When we have that feeling or experience, it's highly likely, and in fact, very probable, that a limiting belief is running the show. For example, I don't deserve happiness, or I will only attract unavailable men, or I have this illness, I'm going to be ill the rest of my life, or I just don't know how to get past something, or to really express myself. They're usually challenges that we face again and again and again. And interestingly, when they recur, it is almost like a limiting belief is trying to correct itself. It's the experience is bringing it to awareness so that maybe this time we'll go past it and change it.
Yeah, I think of it as a messaging system, whether it comes through an actual something happening in the body, whether it be an imbalance or repeatedly injuring oneself in a particular way. Like I know someone who repeatedly gets concussions, or someone else who repeatedly gets in car accidents that are no fault of their own. It's like, what is that about? It's some kind of messaging system to bring our awareness to a limiting belief that we may be holding.
Yeah.
And those limiting beliefs can be very personal. So let's say you grow up in a family of, 3 kids, and you all seemingly, live in the same family, learn the same things, but somehow manage to develop different limiting beliefs. Like one child may feel strongly that they have the power to speak their mind and have no problems asking for help, while another one is not able to ask for help because of whatever limiting belief of I don't deserve, nobody listens, whatever it is. So it's very personal, which actually shows up when we're living our lives. And let's say you have 2 people who go through the same experience and have completely different reactions to that same experience. And you begin to wonder, weren't we in the same room? Didn't we hear and see the same thing? And yet completely different reactions. So the limiting beliefs are very personal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then talking about like where those limiting beliefs come from. Some of it is conditioning, what modeling we see in our family, what learnings we receive from messages we receive from, whether it be a religion or a community or something like that. And then some of them just from our own experiences.
Right. And that's just in this life. And I, as a past life regressionist, I know that we carry these, our soul carries these from lifetime across lifetimes. And it is an experience the soul is wanting to have. And in order, not in one to evolve for the soul's evolution, but also just for the experience. Because when a soul chooses to learn something, maybe it's abundance, maybe it's love, the soul will incorporate to have different experiences around that particular topic. So in certain lifetimes, it'll be deeply loved and cherished. And then other lifetimes, it may not be loved. But that way, it really understands and experiences love. So it's always helpful, because otherwise a lot of people sometimes think, oh, what did I do wrong in this life? But it's helpful to have the context that it goes further back.
Yeah, and I think it's not helpful to judge something as right or wrong, good or bad. That it is here as a gift to us to help us recognize an area which we can heal and make a change and move in a new direction.
Mm-hmm.
Limiting beliefs are exactly that. They're limiting it. They
Mm-hmm.
hold us back from being our true and vibrant selves. And so it's, I can't stress enough how helpful it is to be able to identify what those limiting beliefs are.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because when we're children, our brains aren't even formed, and we take things very personally, understandably. It's something happens, and it may not at all be related to us, but the child can come up with the belief of I'm not lovable, or and it might just have been that the mother was busy, but the child doesn't know that, and they get very, very entrenched and run through. So becoming aware of these is so important. Yeah.
Yeah, and when we when we hold these limiting beliefs, it affects us physically, but it also affects what we manifest in life. Because if we continually put out to the universe, I don't deserve, then of course the universe will return in kind opportunities to reinforce that belief that we have.
Right.
And
Right.
who wants that?
I know. Well, we all do this. We all have our own individual beliefs, and I think life, particularly in the area of health and wellness, I think we're constantly becoming aware and changing these. And you're right. So if we can change these internally, and that's the beauty of these beliefs, it's just a belief, and they can actually change in a few minutes or an instant,
Yes,
because
it's
they
really,
really are a vibration. And if we were able to access it and change it, then our life changes. And it's really that simple.
absolutely. Yes. Yes, and I I can think of one instance where, I was learning to love myself because I had this belief that, I wasn't lovable for whatever reason. So I was learning to love myself, and part of it was learning to love my body. And, I had the message growing up and through culture and whatever that like, you're fat, you know? And so kind of trying to get beyond that took a bit of work. But when I was able to change my beliefs around that, it not only affected my own self-judgment, like it cut that out, but it also changed my judgment of others whose bodies weren't considered like perfect by our society. So it was really amazing how that changing of a limiting belief changed me,
Mm-hmm.
and it changed my experience with the outer world, how I showed up.
That's a beautiful example. Yeah, that's a beautiful example. Yeah, I remember the time I dealt with a limiting belief for most of my life, and when I finally became aware of it, it took me too a lot of work, and mine was around shame. And when I realized that shame was really in the eyes of the other. It was not something in me. And it was so liberating. It was so liberating because I was constantly judging myself and, feeling bad about it. But it was about, well, this is the construct of society, that this is how they think about this issue. And it was so not about me. And the freedom and the self-love and self-acceptance and joy that, no, I was never that. It was as though, somebody put a black cloak over me and said, you're the black cloak. And I came out from under that. So it can be so liberating. Yeah.
Yes, that's awesome. And it's not only liberating, but I think it helps provide us some compassion for others, recognizing that whatever they're doing is coming out of whatever limiting beliefs they have, and have a little compassion around that for others, which we so need at this time. So we have so much more to talk about in this, but we're going to take a short break. So I want to let people know you're listening to A Spirited Exchange with me, Kerry Cadambi, and our guest today, Mytrae Meliana. When we come back, we'll dive deeper into awakening to the power of your mind by exploring examples of how identifying our limiting beliefs can provide opportunity for transformation. And it's a powerful way to evolve our consciousness to a new level of thinking and being. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hello, we're back on A Spirited Exchange with me, Kerry Cadambi, and today's guest, Mytrae Meliana. We're talking about awakening to the power of your mind. And Mytrae defined for us what mind is and why the state of our mind is important, and how limiting beliefs can run our lives. And now we're going to dive a little deeper into how identifying our limiting beliefs can provide us opportunities for transformation. But before we continue, Mytrae, could you give your contact information for our listeners, please?
Sure, happy to. My website is Mytrae Meliana. That's MytraeMeliana.com.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah. So we've talked about a little bit about limiting beliefs and how they can run our lives, how they show up and can negatively affect our relationships, our health, our success in life, and who wants that? That's no fun. So what can we do about these limiting beliefs, and how can we weed our inner mind garden so that what we truly want to plant and cultivate and produce can flourish? So Mytrae, can you share some stories of when limiting beliefs have tripped you up? Like, what's happened in your life that made you realize you had a limiting belief, and what effect did they have on your life? How did you change it? And, maybe tell us a little bit about any experience you've had when you felt like, any experience like that in your life where you've explored those limiting beliefs and been able to transform them and change your life.
Yeah. So as a woman who grew up in India, I was obviously very entrained and was in that culture of what a woman could be and who a woman was, and very defined by the cultural norms and ideas that I grew up in. And one of those, a very strong one, which had a big impact on me, and I think I might still be working myself out of it, is that women are less than men. It was a very, very powerful indoctrination, and I'll use that word. I had an older brother, and it was the difference in terms of how we were treated was very, very different, and the possibilities that I grew up with, that I could have as a girl, was okay. I would get married and I could have a career, but it was seen as sort of this little happy little hobby that I would be humored with. But it was never a sense that I could be a person who contributed something of significant value to the world. My domain was to be the house and potential children. It was very, very defined. And as I went through my education, I studied, and I felt like there was so much more, but I felt like I was never able to, I couldn't have what Western women could have. That it was almost like it was literally a different country. Like I could not have the freedoms, the powers, uh, even though I had the opportunities. Even if I went to college here, which I did, I still couldn't quite have the same amount of power. And that was a huge, huge one for me. And one that I've had to deeply question and kind of unindoctrinate myself from. Yeah.
You mentioned that it took a while, and one thing that I've noticed in working with limiting beliefs, healing any of this stuff, is that often there's many aspects to it. So if you, well, I'm thinking, from my experience of like feeling like I don't deserve, there's different aspects. So there may be the I don't deserve to be heard, and then there's maybe the I don't deserve to have financial abundance, and I don't deserve to, la, la, la. So there may be different aspects of it, and we may need to address each. And sometimes we address one and we think, oh, good to go, got it taken care of. And some other little piece will bring itself up. Sometimes it takes us doing a transformation, living our lives, allowing it to integrate before the next thing comes up and we're ready to do that. So it's always good to not judge ourselves or berate ourselves because we think, darn it, I worked on that, and yet here it is again. But really, it's usually just a different aspect of something that looks similar.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Yeah. How about you? What experiences have you had?
A lot. I can think of a really big one, and some people who have experienced divorce might be able to relate to this. So when my marriage of 27 years ended, I needed to find a new place to live. And I, needed to do a lot of healing around my self-worth and what I felt I deserved after that ended. So I had this idea that I would look for a particular price range of a home and do some remodeling to make it work so I could work out my home. And so I found a home, made an offer on it. Long story short, that offer fell apart. The next house I looked at was a little nicer than the first house. Some time had gone by. And I made the offer and did all that. It also fell apart. I'm like, wow, okay, what's happening? I found another house. It was nicer than the previous one. Made an offer. It fell apart. So it's like, okay, boy, I could really be berating myself on like what's going on with this. But what was really happening was I was going through healing in ways where I was starting to recognize I did deserve. And just healing a lot of internal limiting beliefs. And what ended up happening was I found a property that would require me to actually build my own home, which meant I worked with an architect to design a home that works perfect for working with clients in the home and for having an in-home workspace. And that all happened very smoothly and very quickly. But I believe it happened because I had done my healing work around what I deserved. And so that was just an incredible experience of a shift that happened. Like if I had ended up with that very first house, it would have been very different from the place that I enjoy now.
That is such an amazing story. And I love how each house was better than the previous one because it shows how you were changing that belief and moving on to a very different state. And sort of building a house is such a powerful metaphor for, like, you were rebuilding, you were creating literally a whole new version of you. It wasn't somebody else's version, but it was your design. And that's such a great metaphor too.
Yeah, absolutely true. Yeah. So do you have any other stories of like when you've recognized there were limiting beliefs that were holding you back and how you went about changing that?
Yes, I will talk about money.
So,
so this was a really painful, and this is one way to recognize a limiting belief for anybody who's listening, is when the same experience recurs When it's once, it's okay. I was probably not thinking right, or I didn't have all the information. But when it happens twice, so this is again part of my empowerment as a woman. I have, not really managed my money, and this is fairly new to me. And I trusted external people, two external people. Once it was a friend, and to invest some money, and it was not a good decision. I ended up losing a big chunk of money. And the second time, it was trusting a very close family member. And again, even though I wasn't really sure about that one, and I think this might be my second house example equivalent. It's like, I wasn't quite sure, but I went against myself because I thought they knew more than I did. Because heck, well, how much do I know about money was my belief. I don't know, this other person must know more. And lo and behold, I lost more money. And so then I really hauled myself up and said, I need to work on this. This is not, there's something much deeper here than ignorance. Or so it was a pointer. And I think sometimes these lessons come with pain. Sometimes they're hardships. Sometimes they're just, what was I thinking? That kind of experience. So I am doing some work to really change that. But I just wanted to bring that up because it shows how it's like Groundhog Day. It will happen again and again and again until we go, what is going on? I really need to change this. It's not about out there, it's in here.
Yeah, it's about, whenever we see a pattern of something that's not going the way we want it to, that's like the big ding, 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 ding.
Right.
Pay attention.
Right.
Yeah, so I think both of our stories kind of related around financial resources. Often these limiting beliefs can affect our relationships and our health. And I do have more than one example of how it's affected my health. I had a point, I'll share that. I had a point in my life where my health declined. And, I went to Western medical doctors and they couldn't really figure it out. And I went to alternative doctors and they're like, well, it's probably your thyroid. And, we worked on trying to fix things that way. But when I ended up doing a little deeper inner work, I started recognizing that I wasn't speaking my truth, which this throat chakra, where the thyroid resides, is about speaking your truth. And I looked at patterns of, where was I not speaking my truth? I wasn't speaking it in several relationships. And that meant like I wasn't standing up for what my needs were. I wasn't sharing how something that was done affected me and made me feel. And, my health started declining. It was my body saying, something's out of balance here and you need to make a change. And then it was through learning how to make changes about how to speak my truth. I grew up in a family that wasn't necessarily very good with communication or constructive confrontation. And so it took a lot for me to learn how to do that communication in a way that was safe for me and a way that the other person could listen. And actually to recognize that there are times when someone may not be able to actually listen, that it wouldn't go well, but how you can still take care of yourself in spite of that. And part of it was also learning about setting boundaries for taking care of myself. So that's also a speaking your truth, and setting boundaries of what's okay and what's not okay and what's needed. And so it was a process, and I'm still working on perfecting that, but I've made a lot of progress.
That's a great story. Yeah. And I'm sure it's a story that a lot of women, I think, could relate to, because so many women struggle to speak their truth. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's kind of been a part of our society, is that women's voices are not as honored. The whole thing about if a woman speaks up powerfully, she's a biatch,
Mm-hmm.
and like, why is that?
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same for a man.
Right.
Or our acculturation is not
Yeah.
helpful in that way.
Yeah. No, not at all. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love that it sounds like your thyroid issues went away once you spoke your
Yes,
truth.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
I
yes.
love that because see, that's the power of a limiting belief. That's
Isn't
such a
it?
great example. Yeah.
It's really fascinating
Mm-hmm.
how our mind affects our body.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's not a bad thing. It's a messaging that is there to get our attention,
Right.
to help us move in a way that will benefit us.
Right.
And
And I
that,
think
oh, go ahead.
and I think that's such an important thing that a lot of people don't know, that they're related, that they're interconnected, and that people think it's a sickness and, let me take some medicine, or what do I need to do for my body? But so many people don't know that an emotional or mental belief can actually create an illness. So that's a really powerful example.
Yeah, and understanding this concept is very empowering because it puts hope back into your own hands. That you can actually take action to make change. And you and I have talked before about really anything is possible. It's
Yeah.
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 So I hope people who are listening to this can really step into understanding that really just about anything is possible. And we've seen that when we've gone to a healing center in Brazil, the incredible, miraculous healings of
Mm-hmm.
some people
Mm-hmm.
that have been assisted, through 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 a number of ways there. But one of the ways is changing those limiting beliefs,
Yeah.
working with the power of the mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's really incredible.
It
Are there
is.
any other stories of how limiting beliefs, we've talked about for success, like financial stuff, and for health?
And I mean, I can talk about, I've worked with many clients, many women clients who have, who struggle with love, wanting to find lasting love, beautiful love, deep love, special and sacred love. And I'll take one specific example, but it's actually an example that I've worked with many women on, where women will date men who are, or partners who are unavailable or remote, or uh, not giving them quite enough, or maybe just giving them a few crumbs and then calling it a relationship. And the woman is lives just so hanging on to the little few crumbs, or wanting more but afraid to ask for more, and thinking that that's all she can have or all that she deserves. And is this what love is? And there's always this pang of, it's almost an agony of, why can't I be just fully loved, and the work there is entirely about self-love. And it's a way women can sort of sell themselves short, or give themselves away for something that's not fully satisfying, to have almost what a quasi relationship, but it's not quite the relationship. And there's a lot of fear. Is this all that I can have? So the self-limiting belief there is, am I lovable?
Mm-hmm. That's
Am I worthy of love?
yeah,
Do I
that's such
deserve love?
a foundational piece, because
Mm-hmm.
how can we sell a product that we don't fully believe in ourselves? How can anyone else love us more than we love ourselves? Like, it's
Yeah.
foundational.
Yeah. So that's a whole other journey, finding love, um, and finding a relationship where a limiting belief can come. And there, oftentimes, the limiting beliefs will be cast by parents, like how they showed up in relationship, and that becomes a model for love. So, and oftentimes they're not, a lot of relationships aren't that healthy, and so the child picks that up, and
Mhm.
You know, it gets played out until he or she really decides, okay, now I'm going to change this. And then it has
Yeah.
an opportunity to change.
We'll hold that thought about changing things because we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll talk a little more about that. So I'm Kerry Cadambi, and you're listening to A Spirit Exchange. And when we come back, Mytrae and I will continue our discussion of awakening to the power of your mind and how we can access the subconscious mind for healing of limiting beliefs so that we can live our best life. Mytrae, before we break again, can you please share your contact information for our listeners?
Sure, it's my website. That's MytraeMeliana.com, MytraeMeliana.com.
Great, thank you. Hello, we're back on A Spirited Exchange with me, host Kerry Cadambi, and I have Mytrae Meliana here. We've been talking about awakening to the power of your mind and how identifying limiting beliefs can provide us the opportunity for great change in our lives. So now we're going to dive into how we access the subconscious mind for self-healing of those limiting beliefs. But before we get into that, I'm going to take a moment to share where you can find out more information about me. You can check out my website, thedivineguidancegift.com, and you'll find information about how to work with me in private sessions to clear limiting beliefs, as well as in group sessions with my online Divine Guidance Gateway program, which will be opening soon. So let's talk about how we can access that subconscious mind for self-healing of limiting beliefs. What are some of the ways that we can do this? What difference will healing limiting beliefs make in our lives? And is this something we can do by ourselves, or do we always need the help of a professional? So Mytrae, what can you share with us about how people can identify, access, and heal limiting beliefs?
Yeah, so one way to identify something we mentioned a little bit is when you notice that there's a recurring pattern in your life, when the same experience or a similar experience recurs, and you go, okay, I've been here before. So that's a way our conscious mind is aware of it. And I think other ways are to examine areas of your life where you may not feel fulfilled or happy, or where you feel alive. If there's not a sense of aliveness and growth and joy, or if it's more kind of a sort of a lower energy of maybe apathy or boredom or disillusionment or even depression, then it's all pointing to there's some limiting belief that's not really alive, because we're meant to be alive. And when you're flowing, when your limiting beliefs are, let's say, positive, then you're excited and enjoy and happy. It gives you life and energizes you. So to look at those areas of your life where there isn't that much energy, and usually that can often point to a limiting belief.
Yeah, I like that because a lot of times think of limiting beliefs as like, okay, it's easy to see where I get triggered. That's a pointer to a limiting belief, or where I'm stuck, I can't seem to move forward. But that extra level of like, am I dissatisfied? Am I not as joyful as I'd like to be? Am I not as satisfied with my life? Those are other great areas for doing a little excavation to figure out what it is that we can look a little more into. So that's addressing a little bit about like what the patterns of things. So are there ways that we can, what are some of the ways that we can work on healing or transforming these limiting beliefs?
So one way is the first step is always awareness, recognizing that it's a pattern. And that's a very powerful and empowering step, because once you see it, then it's become conscious. That's when the subconscious has become conscious. And that's a really important part of growth and awareness. And once you have that, usually there's a motivation to change, usually will accompany that. And there are many ways we can try to do some work on our own. And I always recommend, doing that self-work, self-reflection, meditation, affirmations. And I will say that there are with subconscious beliefs, because they're still part conscious, part subconscious, that we can't see all the way around it. It's like we might see one leg of the elephant, but we can't see the entire all the other whole 3 legs, leave alone the trunk. And it's helpful then to work with someone to help us excavate it out, to pull it out by the taproot and really look at it and change it.
Yeah, I think of it as having someone who can shine the flashlight into that dark corner where we couldn't really see what was there.
Yeah.
One other thought I had when you were talking about ways that we can like recognize or access these limiting beliefs is self-talk. Like if we really listen to ourselves, we can sometimes recognize where we have these beliefs. What is this self-talk about? When I think about there's something that I want to do, and then what am I saying to myself? Like, oh, you can't do that, or well, you never do anything right, it won't turn out anyway. And for some people, maybe journaling might help them to recognize some of that self-talk, because they can go back and read it later. And sometimes even a year down the road, you can go like, whoa, look at where I was and what I was saying and now how I've changed that. But yeah, recognition is a huge piece. I love that, you mentioned it brings it from the subconscious to the conscious. And sometimes that alone, that awareness alone, can help with the process of healing it.
Yes.
Sometimes it takes a little more effort. There are somatic, mind-body modalities that people can do on their own. EFT, emotional freedom technique, is one that people can do. There's energy work, like Reiki. And then, of course, there's a number of other modalities we can do on our own. But like you said, sometimes we need someone to walk that path with us, to see things that we have like repressed or pushed down so deeply that we just can't see it ourselves. Yes.
Right.
So,
Those are all wonderful modalities. Yeah. And there's so many modalities, there's so many modalities, so many healing and wellness at this mind-body intersection, that when someone feels ready to work with someone, I think it's a great opportunity. There's EMDR, there's NLP, there's a lot of sound healing. There's so many. There's dream work. There's artwork. There's sound play. There's a lot of art or art therapies which bring the subconscious to the conscious. And so there are a lot of beautiful ways. Movement is a powerful way. There are a lot of movement therapies that work with that as well.
Yeah, I have one modality I work with called, it's clean language, but they have a piece of it called clean space. And it's actually where you move to different parts of the room and you have different perspectives from different places. Like place has knowledge, and it's really, it can be quite fun and quite revealing to really see kind of what's like underneath things and to gain a new perspective. And then another modality that I find incredibly quick and powerful is Psyche, that works with what is in the subconscious and messaging with the body. The K stands for like kinesiology. It's the muscle testing aspect, because the body knows the truth, and through muscle testing you can test that and access different bits of information. And so that's where you can do Psyche on yourself if you're trained in it. But again, this is one where sometimes where something is so deep and hard to see that working with someone else can help us do that. And knowing when to work with a professional, I think sometimes when we don't have a clue or we don't have the tools, meaning maybe we haven't studied different modalities, so that's usually a good pointer to when it's good to look for someone to help you. Right.
And I do want to add to that, if someone's listening to this and hasn't worked with someone, by all means, do everything in your power to to read, to listen to podcasts, to learn on your own. And that this whole journey can be a lot of fun. You know, this sometimes can be a negative association with, oh, I'm not good enough or something's wrong with me. But working to sort of uncover these limiting beliefs, I think of it as a treasure hunt. You know, because it's like, where is it hiding, and what is the gift there for me? And so many of these modalities are so fun, like clean space or hypnotherapy or dream work. It's just or art. You know, they're very enjoyable. So it's not like a serious endeavor, and it can be a very fun journey to embark on.
Yeah, and some of these modalities do not require the person to go back and re-traumatize because of something that may have been traumatic. You know, there may be no need for that. In Psyche, for example, and even clean language, what you're doing is you're identifying what it is that you do want, and you're moving toward that. And so it's much easier, and it's fun because when you approach it with a sense of curiosity, it can be almost like a game, or like you say, digging for treasure. And it can be fascinating and amusing at times, you know, like what shows up.
Yeah.
And there's, again, no need to judge any of it because it serves in some way. And I know that early on, when I first became aware of the ability to heal these limiting beliefs, in the beginning, I was a little reluctant. It's like, oh, I don't want to trudge through that. But the more I practiced it, the more I realized, I know I'm going to feel so much better at the end of it. And it isn't like painful.
No, it's not painful hard work. It can be a lot of fun. And, you know, these modalities that you're talking about, and that they're just enjoyable. Yeah. And very quick, very quick.
Just
And that's the good part. It's not like therapy, which take, you know, years and years. These are so quick.
yeah, it's truly amazing what shifts we can make in our lives. Like we mentioned earlier, it makes our lives richer and more satisfying, and better relationships, better health, better success in life. And then we sort of radiate that out into the world. You know, other people notice it. It changes the way they can live their life, and maybe opens them up as well to look at how so-and-so changed, and like, I want that too.
Yeah. And the best part is we get to have what we have deeply wanted, but just didn't know how to do and have and get there.
Yes.
So,
yeah, so we've talked about limiting beliefs, but one of the things that we can also change is our perception of a stressful event. And, you know, we currently are having this very stressful pandemic, and it's deeply affecting people, like emotionally, financially, all of that. And there are ways, these somatic modalities, to help us shift our perception of the stressful event so that our neurological systems can, relax and be comfortable as we go through this, to help us become more resourceful to get through this challenging time.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. So I just want to remind people that, listen to all the possibilities of what you can do on your own to help recognize and heal limiting beliefs. And also to know that there are times that it's helpful to reach out to someone who can walk that path with you. And I just want you to have hope that you can make changes in your life for the better. So I hope that all of this information has been helpful to you. Yes. So I want to thank today's guest, Mytrae Meliana, for sharing her professional knowledge, her wisdom, her inspiring stories of lived experiences benefited by the power of mind. I really enjoyed our time together, Mytrae.
I did too. Thank you for having me, Kerry.
Oh, always. And I want to thank all the fabulous listeners who are tuning in today with open and curious and receptive minds, eager to awaken to your own personal evolution. And my question for you today is this: how will you choose to awaken the power of your mind? What action will you take today to recognize any limiting beliefs held within you, heal them, and evolve your consciousness to a more peaceful, loving, and successful life. Join me every second and fourth Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Central, and 7 p.m. Eastern. On my next show, April 27th, I'm honored to have Mytrae return. Yay! And we're going to explore what it means to awaken your connection to spirit. So have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you back here next time. Thank you.